The Global Briefing on SAfm.
But let's get into our global briefing this morning. North Korea says it wants to grow its new nuclear arsenal at what Kim Jong-un calls an exponential rate. Of course, it's raising fresh concerns about stability on the Korean peninsula and the risk of miscalculation in East Asia. Well, joining us for our global brief this morning is military scientist Dr. Joan Swart. Dr. Swart, good morning to you. Thanks for your time. So he's not mincing his words, Kim Jong-un. He says he'll grow the arsenal exponentially, and he's unveiled a new plant to go with it. It's going to double the output in 5 years. So let's talk very practically. What does that mean?
Good morning, Cathy. Great to be with you again. So what he says in his new stance and position on this is it suggests that North Korea increasingly sees nuclear weapons as their foundation of regime survival rather than previously being a bargaining tool. So their earlier strategy was simply to have deterrence through a small arsenal, thereby signaling their capability that they've got functioning nuclear weapons that they can and will use if necessary. Now, currently, what they're saying is that it's indicating that they want a larger arsenal with more delivery systems, which they think will bring them greater survivability, and then what we call second strike capability, which means that North Korea wants to ensure that it can absorb a first strike and that it still has the weapons available to retaliate, which, of course, for opponents make coercion harder, regime change instituted by somebody else less likely, and also negotiations more difficult. So the lesson I think here is that some states may draw is that nuclear deterrence remains the ultimate guarantee against external intervention. And I think the Iran war has also kind of starting to point in that direction.
Joan, if we look at what some scientists are saying, or analysts, they believe that they could be producing as many as 90 nuclear warheads.
Yes, which is not an awful lot if you look at other countries like Russia, of course, China, and the US. They've got nuclear warheads in the thousands, literally. And some other countries, of course, as well, India, Pakistan. And although Israel has never openly declared that they've got it, there seems to be a consensus that they've got about 200 to 300 nuclear warheads as well. So I just think that, the response of countries should involve a combination of stronger deterrence, yes, but also more intensive diplomacy and efforts, as you mentioned briefly, to prevent miscalculation.
Yeah.
And believe me, nobody in the region wants to have a military conflict on the Korean Peninsula. So the long-term solution, I believe very strongly in this. It remains diplomatic rather than military.
You know, Dr. Joan, I think one of these days we really should do a segment that just analyzes the state of conflict and this question around nuclear. I think it's such a big one, especially right now. Let's move on to Peru. Yes, Dr. Swart?
Yes. No, I just wanted to say that, we need to restore confidence in international law, international agreements and arms control arrangements and the mechanisms for just managing this before they actually escalate and get out of control.
All right. Peru is choosing a president this weekend, but all of it happens under the shadow of extortion and gun violence.
Yes. So they are thinking to have the military play a supporting role in the security threat that you're mentioning. Um, and I want to touch briefly on that. So the military, I think, can support security, but it cannot substitute for functioning civilian institutions. And locally, we kind of starting to see that in the Western Cape with the gang crime problem there as well. So the military can secure infrastructure, protect polling stations, for instance, during an election, support intelligence gathering, and provide logistical support, but they should not become the primary policing force, and they should also not conduct ordinary law enforcement indefinitely. And you may ask why, and I would say it's because militaries are designed to defeat enemies. They operate in a different legal environment. They've got different objectives. They've got a different intelligence ecosystem, which is more geared to national threats on the international arena. And they've got different accountability as well. So they don't investigate crimes and they don't gather evidence, arrest people, maintain community policing, which is a very important point as well. So there are definitely risks to deploy security forces during an election because you need to balance security and liberty or freedom are not opposites,
Mm.
but they both depend on strong institutions, and you need to keep a balance between the two.
All right, Dr. Joan Swart, thank you for your time this morning. We're completely out of time for that particular conversation. Also, something to note is, the deepening ties between Indonesia and Turkey. They've now announced joint production and arms transfers. And as Dr. Joan was reflecting on it, there does seem to be a silent arms race at play right now. But I really do want us to take some time to reflect on this issue more broadly and a bit more deeply so that we don't miss the fuller picture of what is happening globally.